I burst into the living room and my blood turned to ice. There he was, my 7-year-old curled into a shaking ball on the floor, tears streaming down his face as he gasped for air. A full-blown panic attack. And standing over him? My brother-in-law, phone raised, filming every second with a smirk. "Stop! Delete that right now!" I screamed, my voice barely recognizable. He just laughed. "Relax, it's funny. Look how dramatic he's being." Funny? My child was terrified, struggling to breathe, and this man was treating it like entertainment. Then it hit me. This wasn't the first time. The jokes about his anxiety, the way they mocked his fears, the time they locked him in a dark room to toughen him up. I looked at my son's tear-streaked face, and something inside me shattered. My child was suffering, and they were enjoying it. That's when I made a decision. No more keeping the peace. No more pretending this was normal. No more allowing this family to push us aside like we didn't matter. I grabbed the phone, hit record, and exposed the truth. And what happened next? Let's just say, they'll never hurt him again. But that was just the beginning. What I uncovered in my family is worse than I could have ever imagined. I've always known my family wasn't perfect. Who doesn't have some drama at family gatherings? But there was something deeper, something insidious that I hadn't fully seen until now. My husband and I, we always made sure our kids felt loved, included, and safe. But every time we stepped into the family circle, something felt off. It was the little things at first. A dismissive look when I spoke up about my kids' needs. The way my son's struggles were brushed aside as attention-seeking or my daughter's emotions labeled as dramatic. But it wasn't just them. It was me, too. Every time I voiced a concern or stood up for my children, I was shut down. "Don't make a big deal out of it, Lara," my sister Rachel would say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But I knew better. Behind the facade of family unity, there were cracks. My parents always seemed too busy to notice, too tired to care. And my siblings? They treated the kids like they were too much trouble. I would smile, push it down, and try to ignore it. After all, we were supposed to be a family, right? But over the years, the patterns became clear. Exclusion, manipulation, and emotional neglect. Every holiday, every family gathering, my kids were always on the outside looking in. I told myself it was just a phase. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. It was how they saw us as less than, and this time it had gone too far. That day, I had no idea just how much it would change everything. My son Noah had been anxious all week. He had trouble sleeping, trouble focusing in school, and his mood swings were more intense than usual. I could see it in his eyes. Something wasn't right, but he couldn't quite explain it. He was 8 years old, and the weight of the world was already pressing down on him. We were visiting my sister's house for a family dinner. Noah wasn't feeling well, but I thought being around the family might help take his mind off things. Big mistake. As soon as we walked through the door, I could sense it. The judgment, the whispers, the cold shoulders. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the conversation, but then it happened. Noah started breathing heavily. His chest tightened and his little hands trembled as he clutched my sleeve. I looked down at him, panic rising in my chest. But before I could do anything, I heard the faint sound of a phone camera clicking. It was my brother-in-law, his face glued to his phone, smirking as Noah's panic attack was unfolding right in front of him. He didn't even seem to notice the distress on my son's face, let alone understand what was happening. His thumb hovered over the screen, as if trying to get the perfect shot. I felt my blood run cold. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. He was recording it for his own sick amusement. My heart pounded, a mix of rage and disbelief sweeping through me. I grabbed Noah and pulled him into my arms, holding him tightly. My heart shattered as I whispered, "It's okay, baby. You're safe now." But inside, I was fighting back tears. What kind of family records their child's pain? What kind of family doesn't protect their own? In that moment, I realized something. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't let them keep hurting my kids. I had to stand up no matter the cost. I couldn't just let it go. After that night, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. My son's tear-filled eyes, his little body trembling in fear, and my brother-in-law behind the camera, capturing it all like it was a joke. I kept telling myself it was just one bad incident. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Something inside me snapped. I had to know more. The next morning, I decided to confront him. I called Greg, my brother-in-law. My voice was steady, though my heart raced. "Greg, I need to talk to you about what happened last night." He hesitated. I could feel the tension in his silence. "Lara, it wasn't a big deal. Noah was fine. We were just having fun, okay?" That was the first clue. The way he brushed it off so easily. It wasn't just about the video. It was about the disregard. I pressed further, asking if he had any idea how bad it was, how it affected my son. But he kept insisting, "You're overreacting." I hung up, my head spinning. There was something more here. Something deeper than just one thoughtless act. And that's when I started to look at the bigger picture. The pattern. I went through Noah's phone, the one thing he always hid in his room when he was upset. I wasn't proud of it, but it was the only way to piece together what was happening. There, I found texts from my sister Rachel. They were discussing Noah's anxiety, making cruel jokes about his overreaction to situations, and mocking his need for constant attention. It was sickening. The messages confirmed what I had suspected all along. This wasn't just one isolated incident of my brother-in-law acting thoughtlessly. This was a family-wide issue. They were minimizing my son's mental health. They were belittling him, and worse, they had been doing it for years. But the most gut-wrenching part? My own sister, Rachel, had been enabling it. She never once stood up for him. Instead, she laughed it off, just like Greg did. This wasn't the first time Noah's struggles were mocked. Every time he showed vulnerability, it was turned into a joke. My child's pain was their entertainment. I felt sick to my stomach. The reality hit me like a slap in the face. This family, the people I thought would always support us, had been the ones hurting my children the most. The weight of the discovery hit me like a ton of bricks. My mind raced. How could they do this to us? How could they ignore their own flesh and blood? I couldn't just sit by and let it continue. I had to act, and fast. I called my husband, Mark, trembling with anger. He'd always been my rock, my support, but even he could hardly believe what I was telling him. "Lara, are you sure?" he asked, his voice laced with disbelief. "Rachel, too?" I cut him off, my voice shaking with rage. "Yes, Mark. I have the texts. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not just Greg, it's all of them. And they've been doing it to Noah for so long. We knew we couldn't keep this in the family. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about a hurtful incident. This was about my child's safety. This was about his emotional well-being. And if I didn't step up, no one else would. But things were about to get worse. That evening, I received a call from my sister, Rachel. Her voice was cold, almost mocking. "Lara, I heard you're trying to make a big deal out of something that was just a joke. If you keep pushing this, you're going to ruin our family." I clenched my fists. The audacity. She was still defending Greg. She was still dismissing my child's pain like it was nothing. I'm not ruining the family, Rachel. You've been doing that for years, I snapped back. You all have. Silence. I could hear her heavy breathing on the other end of the line. Then, just as quickly as it came, her tone shifted to something more dangerous. You really want to push this, huh? Fine. But you should know, if you keep stirring the pot, you'll regret it. We'll all regret it. That was the moment, the warning, the threat. And that's when I realized they weren't just being toxic anymore. They were willing to hurt my child, hurt me, to protect themselves. They'd do anything to cover up their lies. This was no longer a matter of misunderstanding or bad judgment. This was manipulation, control, and power at play. The stakes were no longer just about family. It was about our safety. And I knew I had to take action. Fast. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't risk Noah being pushed aside or humiliated again. This was the tipping point. If it meant going up against my own family to protect him, I would. After that phone call, I couldn't sleep. The threat lingered in my mind, heavy and suffocating. But I knew deep down that I couldn't back down. I had to do what was right for Noah, no matter the cost. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was about my child's well-being. It was about ensuring he didn't grow up thinking his pain wasn't worth being heard. So, I made the decision to call Child Protective Services. It wasn't easy, not at all. I knew the moment I picked up the phone, the situation was going to escalate, but I had to. If my family wouldn't protect my son, then I would have to involve people who would. The operator on the other end of the line was patient, but the process felt so formal, so cold. I told them about the exclusion, the mockery of Noah's anxiety, and how the family had been downplaying his struggles for years. I didn't hold back. I gave them everything that had been building up inside me for years. I could feel my hands shaking as I explained the situation. I was putting everything on the line. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and meetings, but something began to shift. The social worker who visited our home was kind and understanding. She spoke with Noah and me separately, asking us questions and taking notes. It was surreal. For the first time, I felt like my child's pain was being validated. That feeling of helplessness began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of relief. Won't lie, I was scared. I knew how my family would react. They'd accuse me of overreacting, of making a mountain out of a molehill. But it didn't matter anymore. Noah's safety mattered more. The real turning point came when the social worker informed me that they were going to involve the authorities. The investigation had started, and it was no longer in my family's hands. The truth was going to be exposed. And my decision to stand up for my child, to push back against my family's cruelty, was finally being backed by the law. The moment I walked into the courtroom, I felt a strange mixture of dread and relief. The decision to take this public, to drag all the family's secrets into the light, was still weighing heavily on me. But I knew it had to be done. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Noah. The investigation had unearthed more than I had expected. The texts, the recorded moments, the casual dismissal of Noah's anxiety, it all came to light in front of the authorities. The family members, who had once thought their actions were behind closed doors, were now facing the consequences of their neglect. Greg, my brother-in-law, was questioned about his actions. When the authorities brought up the recording of Noah's panic attack, he couldn't deny it. It was there in black and white. The evidence was irrefutable. But the real gut punch came when my sister Rachel was asked to speak. I thought for a moment she might apologize, that maybe, just maybe, seeing the truth would change her. But instead, she defended her actions, downplaying everything, calling it miscommunication, as if mocking my son's pain was just a misunderstanding. My heart broke in that moment, but I couldn't look away. I had to hear it. I had to face the truth, even if it hurt. The judge didn't mince words. Greg and Rachel were found guilty of emotional neglect, and the court ordered a formal apology. They were also required to attend family therapy, though part of me knew they wouldn't change. The damage had already been done. Noah and I were awarded temporary protection from them, and the court insisted on monitoring their behavior going forward. That's when I felt the first bit of peace. My son was finally protected. The weight that had been pressing down on me for so long, this suffocating, toxic family dynamic, was lifting. We won. But the justice didn't come without a cost. I didn't leave the courtroom feeling like a victor. There was no real win in this situation. Sure, they were held accountable, but the truth was, the emotional toll it had taken on Noah and me was not something the court could fix. It wasn't just the pain of being hurt by those you loved. It was the realization that family, the people who should have loved and protected us the most, were the ones who nearly broke us. As we left the courtroom that day, Noah's hand tightly gripping mine, there was a quiet sense of calm that washed over me. We had done it. We had fought, and we had won. But more importantly, I knew we were now free from the emotional chains that had bound us for so long. The months that followed were filled with healing, slow, steady, and sometimes difficult. But I could see the change in Noah. His laughter, once hesitant and unsure, was beginning to return. It was still fragile, still needing time, but it was there. My little boy, who had been silenced by the cruelty of those closest to us, was learning how to speak up again, how to trust again. For the first time in a long while, we felt safe. Safe in our home, safe in our family, even if that family had changed. And I couldn't be more thankful. The family therapy the court had ordered did little to heal the wounds between us and my relatives, but it didn't matter anymore. We had rebuilt ourselves. We had our own support system now. My husband, my son, and me. Looking at Noah, I realized how much we had grown, how much we had learned. We were stronger than we had ever been before. I wanted to remind everyone watching this, you don't have to stay silent. When it comes to your children, to their well-being and emotional safety, you are their voice. Don't let anyone ever make you feel like your fight isn't worth it. I'm curious, have you ever faced a moment like this, where you had to choose between family loyalty and standing up for what's right? Share your story with me in the comments below. Let's support each other through this journey.